Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Parker Loves Sports YouTube channel. I am your host, Parker, and thank you for taking a few minutes of your day to spend your time with me. I really appreciate it. Before we get into this video, I just want to ask you to leave a like and subscribe to the channel, as I'm trying to hit 500 subscribers by the time the NFL season starts. So if you could help me reach that goal, it would mean the world to me and it would be amazing. Of course, I am a Broncos fan, but I try and cater to all NFL fans as well. But I focus on the Broncos and Avalanche, as football and hockey are my two favorite sports. And then obviously being from Colorado, those are the two teams I love. Today, we are going to be going over all of the Broncos 2022 undrafted free agents that we signed. And man, there's one that I definitely think will make the roster, barring, of course, anything major happening. And I do see the streak continuing this offseason with an undrafted free agent making the roster. As always, I want to remind you that Jesus is king. I pray that you give your life to him. He's got a plan and a purpose for you. And I just truly hope that you accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior. Believe with your whole heart that he died on the cross for your sins. And if you truly believe that, then you'll go to heaven. Of course, the choice is up to you, but I do hope you accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior, and you find your way to heaven, because it's important to me as a Christian to share this message. And I hope to see you in heaven. And now let's get started with the Denver Broncos undrafted free agents. And this isn't really a ranking video. I didn't put these in any order. I just put these in the order that I saw them come in on Twitter when we signed them a few days ago. But let's jump into this. The first one is Jalen Virgil. One sec. Alrighty, Jalen Virgil. I don't know why there was a 2 before him, but Jalen Virgil is a wide receiver out of Appalachian State. And with the Mountaineers, he was a return man. He was a slot receiver. And to me, I think the Broncos really got him in here to compete for that starting return job. Obviously, we drafted Montreal Washington in the 5th round, and he's most likely going to be the returner. But I do see Jalen Virgil providing a competition like that. Or if we want to add another speed receiver, I feel like Jalen Virgil will add that element to him. Now, what will happen with Jalen Virgil is, do I think he'll make the roster? That's tough to say. I think Jalen Virgil will most likely be a practice squad receiver in case, of course, an injury occurs to one of our receiving core and you need to call him up. Or if something happens to Montreal Washington, he gets hurt, you need to call up another returnman. That's what I think his place is going to be with the Broncos this season. And during his time with the Mountaineers, he had 98 receptions for 1,438 yards. He averaged 14.7 yards per play and scoring 11 touchdowns. Up next, this is one of the best undrafted free agent signings. Chris Allen, or Christopher Allen, edge rusher out of Alabama. And the reason why this is such a great pickup is because he was a monster at Alabama. The only problem and the reason why he fell, obviously, to an undrafted free agent is due to the fact he has a lot of injuries and just that injury history causing him to go undrafted. But luckily for the Broncos, we got to scoop up one of the best undrafted free agents in Christopher Allen. And truly, this is the guy I think makes the roster. I think he continues the streak, and I think he is going to be the next undrafted free agent Bronco to make the roster. He is super talented, and we should be thankful no team took a shot on him in like the 6th, 7th round, because his talent is absolutely there. He played like an Alabama player. Just the injuries are what caused him to fall and to be an undrafted free agent. So we should be absolutely thankful that George Paton got this pickup. This is an amazing pickup by George Paton. With the Crimson Tide, Chris Allen had 34 solo tackles with 20 assist tackles for a total of 54 tackles. He has 18.5 tackles for loss and 6.5 sacks with the Crimson Tide. Moving on to our next one, it's going to be Cortez Davis, cornerback out of Hawaii. You don't see a lot of Hawaii guys get drafted or become undrafted free agents, but Cortez Davis is getting his shot with the Broncos. I'm excited to see what he'll do, but I don't really know if he'll make the team. He might make the practice squad, but with Surtain, Darby, Caden Williams, Isang Bassi, Michael Ojemudia, Damari Mathis, and then we also drafted what's his name? Faion Hicks. We also drafted Faion Hicks. Sorry, it took a while for the name to come to my head. But yeah, we'll see if he makes the team, because I'm not sure Faion Hicks even makes the team. But, we'll see obviously what happens when Cam comes. I feel like they could both be potential practice squad guys, but we'll see. They're going to come into camp. They're going to compete. And if they perform really, really well, they could make the team. So I know I'm giving what my predictions are, but I'm just a guy on the internet. I don't really have insight to the camp. I don't have insight to the plans on what the Broncos want to do. So I'm just rambling about what I think, and I could definitely be completely wrong. So yeah, Cortez Davis out of Hawaii, and with the Rainbow Warriors, he had 97 solo tackles with 34 assist tackles for a total of 131 tackles. He has 8 tackles for loss, 31 passes defended, 2 interceptions, and 1 touchdown. Next up is Brandon Johnson, wide receiver out of UCF. Now, he transferred to UCF from Tennessee and played his final season. I believe he played 5 seasons. I believe he was a grad transfer from Tennessee to UCF, and he's getting his shot with the Broncos. Now, again, another guy, I don't know if he'll make the team. Obviously, with our wide receiving core, he could surprise us, and he could, but hey, just going to provide some competition and some depth, which is never a bad thing, providing competition. It's going to bring the best out of everyone. And with his time with the UCF Knights and the Tennessee Volunteers, he had 117 receptions for 1,534 yards, averaging about 13.1 yards per play and scoring 12 touchdowns. Next, we have Ghadafi Wright, linebacker out of Buffalo. And I am super intrigued on Ghadafi Wright. Obviously, we didn't draft a linebacker in this year's draft, which a lot of Broncos fans thought that we were. But Ghadafi Wright was very, very productive at Buffalo. He can cover the run. He can play the pass. He can rush the passer if you need him. So I think this is a very intriguing player. Will we have multiple undrafted free agents make the roster? I don't know, but Ghadafi Wright is definitely going to be one that I'm going to be watching in camp, because I think there might be a shot he could beat out someone like a Barrington Wade or a Justin Sternad potentially to make the roster. And during his time with the Buffalo Bulls, he had 84 solo tackles with 63 assist tackles for a total of 147 tackles. He had 19.5 tackles for loss, 7 sacks, 13 passes defended, 4 interceptions, and 2 touchdowns. Next up, we have Caden Davis, wide receiver out of Northwest Missouri State. Now, obviously, with it being such a small school, their stats were kind of hard to find and keep track of. So I just did his stats from this past season, not during his entire career. And of course, I could not find an average with such a small school. But with his time with Northwest Missouri State, he had 44 receptions for 714 yards and 10 touchdowns. Next up, we have Sebastian Gutierrez, offensive tackle out of Minot State. Now, it is intriguing. Another position we didn't address that a lot of Broncos fans thought we would was offensive tackle. We'll see if Sebastian can compete. Maybe he makes the team. Maybe he makes the practice squad roster. But, definitely an offensive tackle, which I don't hate. Obviously, Garrett Bowles is our starting left tackle, and then all of our other tackles are on one-year deals. So will he get a chance to compete this year? I would say probably not. But in the future, he could definitely make the squad and potentially be our starting right tackle next year, or he could be a backup next year, depending on what happens in next year's free agency and next year's draft. So, Sebastian Gutierrez, I'm intrigued by. I don't know if he makes the roster this year, though. Next up, the Broncos signed Kenyan Muaga, linebacker out of USC, to the team. Another guy like Ghadafi Wright, another linebacker that the Broncos drafted. And, out of USC, he was productive with 105 solo tackles, 100 assist tackles for a total of 205 tackles. He had 16.5 tackles for loss, 5 sacks. He defended 6 passes, and he has 3 interceptions. Now, I'm intrigued because I feel like, I don't know. I feel like one of the, between Kenyan Muaga and Ghadafi Wright could make the team. I'd say probably Ghadafi Wright would be my choice to make the team if we go with the undrafted free agent in that direction. But, Muaga, I would not count it out because he could definitely compete obviously all of them are competing for roster spots, but we'll see what happens if an undrafted free agent linebacker makes the team. Next up, this is another prospect I'm intrigued by, Jaquan McMillan, cornerback out of East Carolina. Now, he had 97 solo tackles, 30 assist tackles, 127 total tackles, 5 tackles for loss, 28 passes defended, with 12 interceptions and a touchdown for the Pirates. Now, I'm intrigued because once again, I feel like we're kind of set at corner. You got Surtain, Darby, Quan Williams, Michael Ojemudia. Those are your 4 starters. Then you drafted Damari Mathis. You already have Isang Bassi on the team. Have a couple undrafted free agents with McMillan, Cortez Davis, and then you also drafted Faion Hicks in the 7th round. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But the stats he put up at East Carolina were really, really good. Obviously, those 12 interceptions are not something to ignore, albeit maybe not against the greatest competition, but it's not something you can ignore as well. So we'll see what happens, but I am very intrigued by Jaquan McMillan. Next up, we have Dillon Parham, tight end out of North Carolina State. Not to be confused with Raiders' 3rd round pick, Dillon Parham, guard out of Memphis. But Parham is someone who, I don't know, maybe you bring him in as a blocking tight end. Obviously, you have Eric Tomlinson, Sean Bayer to fill that role. But, obviously, you look at the stats, 12 receptions for 110 yards, a 9.2 average, and 2 touchdowns during his career with North Carolina. He was mostly utilized as a blocker for them. And that's something maybe that the coaching staff and obviously George Payton and the front office wanted to bring in another blocking tight end, potentially give him a shot. So I'm intrigued. I don't necessarily think he makes the roster, but I do think he obviously comes in, competes, and we'll see what happens. But if I were to guess, I would say Dillon Parham does not make the team. But once again, if he's watching this or anybody's watching this that know him, I'm just a guy on the internet. He could prove me wrong. He can definitely prove me wrong, but that's just my opinion. Next up, we have Rodney Williams, tight end out of the University of Texas, Martin. And, with the Skyhawks, he had 99 receptions for 1,217 yards and 7 touchdowns. However, I don't think we're going to carry a lot of tight ends on the roster. I think, obviously, Alberto Cuebanam, you got Greg Dulcich, then you got Eric Tomlinson as your blocking tight end. And that's maybe it. That's maybe it for the tight end position. Maybe you bring one more, like a Sean Bayer, maybe a Dillon Parham, or someone as a second blocking tight end on the roster. But personally, I think the deep threats and the tight ends that are going to go out and pass catches, I think we're good on. So we'll see what happens with Rodney Williams, but he's another tight end we signed as an undrafted free agent. Next up, we have Tyreek McCallister, running back out of Charleston. And let me tell you, I searched and searched and searched for his stats at Charleston. I could not find it. I went onto the Charleston website. I could not find him. I went onto ESPN. Could not find him. I went on to Sports Reference. I could not find him. So if you happen to find Tyreek McCallister's stats, or you know him, or maybe there's a site that I didn't look at, then make sure to leave them in the comments and people can go and look there. But I'm sorry, I looked and looked and looked and I could not find them. And, I just wanted to get this video out. Even though this was made a couple days ago, I have other stuff. I need to finish I'm a junior in college, so I need to finish some of my finals coming up this week. So I didn't have all day to look for his stats. Next up, we have Michael Neese, offensive lineman out of Temple, someone who could play both guard, play tackle, 6'5", 295 pounds. Obviously, lineman depth is important. We'll see what happens. Obviously, before the draft, before the 2nd round, there was speculation Dalton Reisner could be traded. We'll see if that happens. I don't think he should be traded, but if he is, you obviously are going to need more depth, as Natani Moody or Quinn Miners are going to be bumped up to the starting offensive guard, so you would want to add some more depth. So we'll see what happens, and we'll monitor that situation. And then finally, the last undrafted free agent that the Broncos signed was Eric Barrier, quarterback out of Eastern Washington. Now, unfortunately for Barrier, I don't think he makes a team unless we are willing to, not have Josh Johnson, who we signed this offseason, be the backup to Russell Wilson. Brett Rippon, we maybe let go and don't bring him back. Barrier out of Eastern Washington had 361 completions for 552 attempts. He threw for 5,070 yards, 46 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions while having a pass rating of 167.2. And if I were to guess, I would say the quarterbacks this year are going to be obviously Russell Wilson as the starter, Josh Johnson as the backup, and then I'd say Brett Rippon is going to be the practice squad quarterback. Maybe Eric Barrier is on the practice squad. Maybe we have him. Maybe we carry 2 quarterbacks on the practice squad in case anything happens. But I'm such a huge fan of Brett Rippon. He is just so smart and so intelligent when it comes to football. I think it's beneficial to have him on the team. Obviously, his uncle was Mark Rippon, but Brett Rippon is just so smart. I think it's beneficial to have him on the team. So we'll see if Barrier makes the practice squad. But, obviously with rookie minicamp, you're going to need a quarterback. So he's going to play that role, and we'll see what he does in training camp with the rest of the competition. But anyway, those are the undrafted free agents that the Broncos signed. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know who you think is going to make the team out of all these undrafted free agents. If I had to guess, my pick would be Chris Allen, edge out of Alabama. Super talented player. Fell out of the draft. I thought he should have been drafted. Maybe take a shot on him in the 5th, 6th, or 7th round. The Broncos get lucky, and we are able to snag him as an undrafted free agent. And he is my pick to make the Broncos as an undrafted free agent. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Peace out.